Nukes. Lots and lots of nukes and triangles.
Nuclear powered.
So we want to talk about... So do you remember... I'll share a cool thing. The Germans during World War I, when they came out with the U-boat, do you know that was diesel electric? So it could actually circumnavigate the globe at 12 knots on one tank.
That's crazy.
So what happened was they had the diesel would go down. The diesel would run like a big generator. And then the generator would go right down to these electric motors, which would move the props. It's incredibly efficient.
That's why I always wonder why electric cars don't have small diesel engines in them. Just enough to run it. Just enough to kind of recharge it.
It's just too efficient.
Yeah.
It's just too efficient.
I mean, you could have a very, very small diesel engine, just enough to charge up the batteries and keep the motors, running at a... There has...
Could you imagine the electric motors I could put in my F-250?
Oh, yeah.
The thing would be screaming.
I've seen that, where they put these big...
But, it's interesting. But
can burn tires off.
When was that? The 1910, 1920? Yes. You could circumnavigate the globe in a German U-boat at like 12 knots with diesel electric engines. The technology was phenomenal back then, right? And you can look this up. That's a fact. And then later on, the United States gets its first nuclear submarine.
Yes.
I don't... What was it called?
That I don't know the name of it. You'd have to look it up.
Yeah, I'd have to look it up. But the cool part about that is it only had to come up once a month in the earlier stages of these nuclear submarines. And then what you found is that the thing's ability to continue to just perpetually generate energy for itself, it could just be gliding around the ocean just for a totally indefinite amount of time. I guess until the fuel's been spent in the rods. So what's the obvious next step? Can you put that sort of nuclear engine in a plane? That's a great question. And that's what leads us to what's the plane called, Jason?
TR-3B.
TR-3B.
It's a nuclear-powered anti-gravity Delta aircraft.
That's the coolest thing I've heard in a while.
So this nuclear-powered aircraft was developed by Lockheed Martin in the U.S. It uses the B-52 as a carrier. So explain that.
So the B-52, so it's going to take that shape, the triangle shape, but they're going to fill in the back half of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a great stealth item because the angles and the paint that they use are really good for bouncing radio signals off properly so that it doesn't show up on radar. Stealth technology is mint. It can carry a huge payload because a nuclear generator is not going to be lightweight.
No.
It's going to be sizable. So using that structure, that pre-structure of the ship is very intelligent for Lockheed to say, how do we repurpose this further?
Yeah, and it's 68,000 horsepower.
I'm sorry, what?
68,000 horsepower.
I don't even know how do you compare?
What is what's the biggest aircraft? A C5? The global Galaxy or whatever the
C5 aircraft.
Horsepower.
Let's see here. It's not even, they don't have that online. C5 aircraft horsepower.
Yeah.
C5 aircraft.
There's probably one. I think there's like the Globe Master or something that's bigger, but
I love the Globe Master. That's
something
the coolest
like that.
name. Imagine being an engineer. What are we gonna call it? The Globe Master. Yeah. Let's see how much. Let's see what we got here.
Turtle is the Globe Master.
We're the Globe Master. Engines. Come on.
Speaking of our sponsors, sign up at turtle.co.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic.
You can share your data and earn money,
yeah.
Or you can donate it to causes like higher density living.
Oh, super
I just did that. I filled out 3 data packets yesterday on turtle.co and automatically put because you can just have them auto sell.
Mm-hmm.
I clicked on that and then I put higher density living. I've been putting on all of them.
It's that low labor. It's auto sell. Oh, that's really weird.
I'd love just to be able to have like a default thing where I could just say all my data packets go to higher density living, where I don't have to do it on each one.
Yeah. Okay. So this thing gives me thrust on here, but it doesn't give me horsepower.
Oh, okay. But check this out. 68,000 horsepower and can fly continuously without landing for how many years?
All right. I'm going to take a stab. So 6 years?
15.
Because I'm trying to think of submarines, I have a lot of people that do a lot of engineering on submarines. I've had people work for General Dynamics. That's a lot of years to just be flying around.
So it's the United States announced to the world the TR-3B on October 1st, 2019. The problem with this, though, once again, and we talk about this all the time, and this has to say, it is a triangle with 3 big nuclear green dots glowing.
Yeah.
So
how much radiation that thing's spewing off?
So now we have a triangle in the sky.
Yeah.
With 3 glowing green big dots.
What's everyone going to think
big,
it is?
Like holes, like B-52 type, window holes.
Yeah.
So yeah, here we go.
Everyone's going to be like, is that a UFO? Mm-hmm. Are those aliens? No, ladies and gentlemen, that is your own government.
That is the United States government with these triangles with green on it, because people have seen that. They've seen triangles and then streaking across the sky. Mm-hmm. That is the U.S. government. And they decided to release this on October 1st. So who knows how long Lockheed Martin had made this, when it was made. It says.
Yeah.
It was the technology became available in the mid-1980s.
I'm sorry. We had like special grav tech. Plasma grav tech in the 80s. What took so long?
Yeah, the triangular-shaped nuclear-powered aerospace platform was developed under the Aurora program with SDI and black budget monies. The Aurora program is a top-secret development program for advanced aerospace vehicles and is responsible for the development of the hypersonic strategic reconnaissance. So, and I've heard about those.
So they fly some of those out of Kirtland. Mm-hmm. I remember when I first moved to Albuquerque. I think I've shared this story on here. It's about 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
And all I hear is this, I don't know what the hell it was, just this thing ripping apart the sky, going, bah, 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 but like flying through the sky. It sounded like it was like pulling the sky apart, only to find out that it was a new type of hypersonic engine that they were testing. It was one that Tesla came up with. It was like a pulsing jet something. I don't know what it was, but the thing was just like flash, 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 fly, and the dogs are freaking out in the house. Like, it was so loud. It was shaking the whole place. Just like, and the sky, I honestly thought I was getting cut in half. I thought I was going to die. Like, I'm coming out of my sleep, and I'm like, what's happening?
Yeah, I mean, you had the SR-71, which was back in the 40s, 50s, 60s.
Things like that.
And then you had the SR-74, which was a scamp.
Yep.
Or the scramp.
Yeah, you had the scramp.
And then you had the SR-75, which was great name.
Yep. And
the Penetrator.
The Penetrator. And you had the XB-7 Valkyrie.
Yes.
They only made a couple of them because of limited titanium supply, and the one that really did fly actually blew up in a test crash.
Yes.
In a test flight, because another plane came over and smashed into its wing, tailspin the thing, and just ripped apart.
So the TR-3B was flying in 1994 and cost $3 billion. But here's the situation. As we know, the SR-71, all of a sudden, something happens in Roswell. Something happens in multiple places around the world. Next thing you know, we get the SR-71, which I have one sitting right over there. And it's that long, freaky looking. You can go to the Boeing Museum, and there's actually one sitting in there. But it's like, all of a sudden, we have the SR-71 after these alien aircraft are down.
And they started designing the SR-71 late 40s, early 50s before they had a prototype.
Yeah, and Bob Lazar talked about this.
Well, here's what's cool about it, the SR-71. Do you know that they didn't have CAD and stuff like that at the time? This was actually done with a slide rule. So here's what I find interesting, and I may have talked about this sometime before, but the SR-71 was designed off a new realm of mathematics that otherwise ceased to exist. Roswell hits, and then math just happens to change. That's a very important thing. Like, imagine if someone came down to you and said, your math is off a little bit. Just imagine that. Mm-hmm. Or you start to do measurements on something that is abnormal to your reality, and you're like, well, this is interesting math.
Here's a skyscraper.
Yeah.
Your math's off a little bit.
Yeah, your math's off a little bit. But then think about how you start designing skyscrapers. Mm-hmm. And then everyone else in the world's like, well, how do you do that with a slide rule? How do you design something like that? So fast, so rigid at speed, like everything about it. Oh, by the way, it had a supercomputer sitting in the back of it with doing triangulation of the stars, even in full overcast skies at a time when IBM was filling up entire rooms with computers. And this thing was the size of a trash can sitting in the SR-71. Something's off.
Yeah, something's off. It's, whenever you see a leap in technology, something's off.
Yeah, something's off. Because when's the last time you saw a leap in human consciousness?
Yeah, exactly.
Never.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, never.
So when we see that would be interesting to look at human conscious, a graph, and then look at technology.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, that is right.
Just to see that graph.
See the spikes.
Yeah, you would see.
Goes,
there's alien interference.
Yeah, there we go. Oh, Teflon. Oh, Velcro.
So, they know that they reverse engineered and recovered alien artifacts.
Yeah.
And then these programs were born out of these top secret programs. The TR-3B vehicle's outer coating is reactive to electrical stimulation and can change color, reflectiveness, and radar absorptiveness.
Yeah, so that's pretty neat. So remember how I was saying the angles on a lot of these other stealth planes?
Mm-hmm.
Just the way they're angled doesn't work with radar, but this one's physically absorbing radio waves. And I guess whatever its crystalline structure, it has to able to refract light. So this thing can kind of like, it's almost like bending light a little bit with its body. Very difficult to see this object.
Yeah, some people think it looks like a cylinder when it's flying. Some may even look like a small aircraft, but it tricks radar, and that's the whole idea. Because they want it to be falsely detect of a variety of different aircraft, or think that there's no aircraft, or maybe even several aircraft at various locations. If they can make it appear to be that.
Multiple places at once. Can I ask you something? Do you know of anything else that just absorbs radar waves?
I wonder. There's got to be something in nature. There has to be something in nature.
Yeah, I know. I'm saying. Do you know of anything? Where did this just pop up? Someone's like, "Oh, I got a great idea. Let's coat it with something where it just sucks in energy waves from everything else." When did that happen? Like, why don't I have that on my car? So when a cop's trying to like use a radar gun on me?
Well, I think in White Sands incident, he was talking about that.
Yeah,
Alon was.
Yeah, no, they create that field. So how do you create that field effect?
And this was called a reactive to electrical stimulation, the outer coating, in which Alon was talking about the same thing.
That's correct.
The U.S. Department of Defense stated that will release UFO research results and secret files again in the near future. So they released this TR-3B in part of this.
What does that tell you, though? You guys you got this stuff in the mid-'80s. You started flying it around in the 90s. That means you discovered it really in the 70s. And now we're just finding out about how many years is that? 20? That's 50 years. So since when the technology was essentially discovered that it was possible to put a nuclear-powered engine inside an aircraft,
right?
It's been 50 years. Do you know how many iPhone varieties can come out in 50 years?
Yeah.
Just think about that. So I'm giving something super advanced. Now think about all the varieties of technology I can create within 50 years.
Yeah, and so, and we're going to get a little technical here, but I want people to understand this. When we talk about the biggest issue with aircraft is having to deal with humans. Humans are the problem in aircraft.
They cause most of the problems in aircraft.
Yeah, and also the limitations of, you can rip. G-forces are bad enough. They make pilots go out and then come back, pass out and stuff. So you can rip people apart. And Alon talked about this in there. But here's the question that I have for you, and I want us to look into this a little bit because they get into detail a little bit about the cockpit.
Yeah.
They say the cockpit is the plasma acceleration ring of the magnetic field interrupter. So the plasma, and then they talk about the mass of the circular accelerator and all mass within the accelerator, such as the crew capsule and the nuclear reactor, are reduced by almost 90%.
Okay, so here,
a plasma acceleration ring.
No, I'll tell you what's going on. This is really fundamentally not complicated. The acceleration, the generator is accelerating light particles. Okay, in a concentric magnetically fielded ring, so they're always taking the same path. Now, as you put more energy into this thing to generate more light photons, those photons generate a field effect, which is repulsive of the effect that gravity has on mass. So you actually have a drop in the mass of the people sitting inside of that field relative to everything outside.
Oh, yeah, that's what you're saying. Yeah, right.
Is this making sense?
Yeah, it's almost like...
so here's the cool part.
Yeah.
The faster I accelerate it, the less energy it actually takes for me to use because it inherently becomes lighter. So the people on the inside have the ability to move so quickly without outside forces imposing upon them because the field effect of photons going out through this plasma ring accelerator that it has is faster than the gravity that would be having detrimental effects on a physical human body on the inside.
Yeah, and so... Of course, like you said, it makes the vehicle extremely light, and then it can outperform and outmaneuver anything.
Yeah, at that point.
Well, not anything.
Well, not
for anything on this.
Anything
globe.
that we've made.
Yes.
Yeah, correct. and that's the interesting part. It's not a crazy technology, and honestly, this is the same tech Alon had spoken about in the White Sands incident. Do you remember we talked about this photon acceleration? Same exact thing. And then if you look at the Plejaren and the way they talk about how they build their beam ships, they have a 3-stage motor. Still using this concentric magnetic ring situation where they're like layering these things and creating a pulse through it. It's all the same.
Yeah, so the TR-3B's propulsion is provided, what we know, by 3 multi-mode thrusters mounted at each bottom corner of the triangular platform. So you could picture that triangle. The TR-3 is a sub-Mach 9 vehicle until it reaches altitudes above 100,000 feet. Then no one knows how fast it can go.
So it can go over 100,000 feet. So currently right now they have limitations on the drag.
Yeah.
Which tells me that the calculation for speed of light, which our government currently uses, or Lockheed, is inaccurate. If you can accurately calculate the speed of light, you can change the modifications for how you're accelerating those particles. And then through that, you're essentially making the motor more efficient. So, you know Tesla, they send wireless updates to the car?
Yes.
Same damn thing. Oh, we fixed the math. Now we can send it. Now our motor's going to function better. You get better electric mileage, or what? It's not gas mileage, but you know what I'm saying? You can travel a further distance. So the better the acceleration, Jason, but what's the cool part? What does this tell you? The interesting part about this? What's the most interesting thing?
I think the most interesting, I mean, we can go over this.
That people lied to us about gravity.
Yes.
That's the best part, okay? The best part is that the limitation we have seen with gravity and leaving this atmosphere with rockets and huge propulsion, everything that Elon's doing, is a stupid, stupid way of trying to actually escape the current bounds that we're in. All we had to do was use the counterpart of what gravity was, and that was the acceleration of light in the opposite direction. We're essentially making ourselves massless as we accelerate these things. And if you can get a large accelerator, like the Cardin one they have over in Harm, whatever the thing is, not the speaker system, but over in CERN, make that tiny, juice that shit up, and throw those particles to the outside. You have a protective field, 24 hours. You could launch whatever you wanted at that craft, and if it tried to come near the field, it couldn't get through it.
Well, it says the magnetic vortex field can offset 89% of the Earth's gravity.
Yeah,
and it can easily attack any target on Earth at high speed. No supersonic missile can attack or intercept it.
No, you wouldn't be able to.
Yeah.
If you can leave gravity and you can leave the friction of air, nothing.
Well, China just came out with a new missile, a brand new missile, and I saw it online, and we'll have to look this up. And it's scaring the shit out of people. But I'm wondering, you know, obviously, if they know about the TR-3, which they'd known a long time ago, probably in the 90s.
Technology is 50 years old. They knew that they could get an anti-gravitational effect and create a field that was protective in the 50s. And now we're just hearing about it.
Yeah. Who knows? Who knows what's flying around in the skies now? And
who knows what else they applied it to, Jason?
And they said this program, the TR-3, has to be indefinite. The program does, because it's nuclear. So
just
can't. I mean, it's going to.
Could you imagine sticking that technology in a golf cart?
Oh, that'd be so wild.
Just fucking hauling. Or you know what it reminds me of?
You crash, you're dead.
Yeah.
Unless you have that magnetic
Unless you get the field around you.
you.
Well, you could put that sort of like little field. If you get like tiny nuclear reactors, you could put them in, and it would remind me of, the speed racers or pod racers they had in Star Wars? Or the thing that would skate across the desert? These are not the droids you're looking for. You could essentially generate that same effect. You don't need one to go up high, just enough to get me off the ground.
Yeah, and I think that's really important that people understand is most of our technology, the way that technology works is, okay, we have reverse engineering from alien, extraterrestrial species. Then the military gets a hold of it. And then the military plays around with it, molds it, makes it. And then these generals and everybody else, it leaks into commercial applications. Like we have Teflon. I mean, Teflon is an alien invention that was invented a long time ago. And then from there, then that technology, as it begins to decentralize and scale, it becomes super cheap. And then it almost goes to a lot of technology eventually, like semiconductor stuff, like almost to zero cost.
Correct.
And then from there, then the globe advances. Yeah. So people have to understand where the origin of this is.
It doesn't just appear. It's not an epiphany that we have. These are impulses or direct intervention through some sort of crash. And so I need you to consider that the next time you go outside and look up in the sky and think, is it possible for us to attain that?